Isaiah 42, verse 11.
42 verse 11. Yeah, what about it?
Read it.
All right. Let the wilderness and the cities lift up their voice, and the settlements where Kedar inhabits. Let the inhabitants of Selah sing aloud. Let them shout for joy from the tops of the mountains. Okay, I've read it. What do you want to say?
Let them give glory to the Lord and proclaim his praise in thy name. Again, he's
Yes.
mentioning something about Kedar tribes.
What about it?
What do you think about Kedar then?
Okay, so I'll answer that question. If you read that passage in context, right, as you see by the markings, this is not the first time I've talked about this passage.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, right? If you actually read it in context, you start at verse 10. It says, sing to the Lord a new song. Firstly, Muslims don't sing, they think it's haram. Sing his praise.
It's not haram.
Listen.
It's not haram.
Listen. Well, they seem to disagree. I know it's not in the Quran, but you deny the hadiths and he accepts the hadiths. Sing to the Lord a new song, sing his praise from the end of the earth. So he's talking about all the earth celebrating. You who go down to the sea and all that is in it. So it's mentioned down to the sea. You islands, so now it's mentioned the islands and those who dwell on them. Let the wilderness and its cities lift up their voice. So now it's mentioned the wilderness. The settlements where Kedar inhabits. So it's mentioned the settlements of Kedar. Then it goes on, let the inhabitants of Selah, so that's Jerusalem, sing aloud. Let them shout for joy from the tops of mountains. Let them give glory to the Lord and declare his praises in the coastlines. So it started that whole prose by talking about the entire world celebrating, and then it references different points of the entire world. Coastlines. Yes, it did. Coastlines. Yes, it did. Coastlines. Yes, it did. Coastlines.
As you know.
Yeah, I'm going to finish. Coastlines, mountains, cities in wildernesses, people that live on islands, Kedar and Jerusalem should all celebrate. And Muslims go, oh, Kedar, well that means Muhammad. It's got nothing to do with Muhammad.
First, we need to examine the meaning of the word Kedar. In Hebrew, Kedar means dark or dark-skinned, and it refers to one of the sons of Ishmael. See Genesis 25:13. In the context of the Hebrew Bible, Kedar is not portrayed as a nation of honor or spiritual elevation. Rather, it is described as a nomadic people dwelling in the wilderness, far from the covenant and law of Yahweh. In Psalm 120, verse 5, the psalmist cries out with sorrow, "Woe to me that I dwell in Meshech, that I live among the tents of Kedar." These words don't celebrate Kedar. They express grief. In the Bible, Kedar becomes a symbol of spiritual exile, of being cut off, far from the presence of God. So when Isaiah 42:11 speaks of the villages that Kedar inhabits, it is not a mark of prophetic origin or prestige. Instead, it reflects something powerful, that even the most distant, forgotten peoples will rejoice when the light of the Lord comes to them. Kedar, in this context, is not the source of the prophecy, but the object of the Messiah's light, a symbol of the Gentile nations receiving redemption. Another key phrase is inhabitants of the rock, which in Hebrew is Selah. This may refer to rocky places like Petra in Edom, or more metaphorically, to remote, rugged, and hardened regions. It emphasizes the scope of the Messiah's reach, that even those in the most isolated and desolate places will lift their voices in praise as they too are touched by God's salvation. Theologically speaking, Isaiah 42 is part of a powerful series of prophecies about the servant of the Lord, Ebed Yahweh, a chosen figure who suffers on behalf of others, redeems the broken, and brings God's justice to the nations. According to Isaiah 42:6, this servant is called a covenant to the people, a light to the nations, a title given to no one else in the entire Old Testament. Muhammad, in Islamic theology, is never described as a covenant. He is never called the light of the nations in the redemptive sense. The Quran does not describe him as someone who opens the eyes of the blind or sets captives free from spiritual bondage. But in Luke 4:18, Jesus reads from Isaiah 61, a sister passage to Isaiah 42, and boldly declares, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." And in Matthew 12:18-21, Isaiah 42:1-4 is directly applied to Jesus, showing that he alone is the fulfillment of this divine prophecy. The gospel leaves no room for another prophet to fulfill this role. Only Jesus, through his blood, as stated in Matthew 26:28, becomes the everlasting covenant for all people.
Our cousins.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you believe that you are not our cousins?
Yes, I'm happy to say Jews and Arabs are cousins.
Look, what I believe that is happening here.
Yeah.
It's mentioning, it's describing the world, and then it's describing Arabia, and then it's describing Kedar.
I know what you're saying.
So
saying it for the camera. Go on,
so it's going. So you who go down to the sea. So it's describing the world.
And it gets shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and then look, it says Kedar. But here's the problem. It then goes on, and this is the bit you guys always want to forget. It then goes on. Let the inhabitants of Jerusalem say like. So why can't this prophet come from Jerusalem? But then he goes on. Let them shout for joy from the tops of the mountains.
Yes,
how many mountains are on earth, ladies and gentlemen? Let them give glory to the Lord and declare His praises in the coastlands. How many coastlines? So your argument is it's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, but the passage goes on and it goes on to explain the world again.
Selah. I've seen this one. Selah. There's literally like tens of mountains called Selah. So I don't think it's mentioned Jerusalem there.
Yeah.
Because there's loads of places.
Yeah.
But for me, Selah because it's such a broad.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with Muhammad, guys.
So you're denying Muhammad, is that what it is?
Yes, I'm denying Muhammad. Muhammad was not a prophet, and Muhammad was not in the Bible. So what? There's 2 billion followers of Christ. Is Christianity true now?
Song of Solomon. Even a Jewish scholar has actually agreed, and he said accepted that Muhammad was meant.
And
to be
even a Salafi scholar who is the chief. The chief sheikh of Islam QA has said about the Song of Solomon that it is not a reference to Muhammad. You go and check what I'm saying. It is not a reference to Muhammad. Muslims that say that don't know what they're talking about.
Well,
and that's a Muslim scholar.
Well, you have a Jewish scholar that said it's Muhammad
And
mentioned.
and the
you
Jewish.
can't deny Muhammad.
So what you're saying is that the Jewish scholar is right and the Muslim scholar is wrong.
Still 1 point. I mean, there's about 100 points we can bring.
Yeah, the Song of Solomon, the Song of
the prophecies.
the Song of
There's like many sides.
What
That's
you're,
just one of
let me
many.
just address this point, because what you're using is called a phonetic fallacy, right? The term in the Arabic, the term in the Hebrew is Muhammadin. That's the term in the Hebrew, right? Yeah, you all recognise it. I'm not making it up. Muhammadim is not a noun. Muhammadim is an adjective. It is a descriptive word, and it is used. Let me finish. It is used all the way through the Old Testament. It's used everywhere in the Old Testament. And the point is, no. Okay, guys, so since we're all interrupting, I'm just going to raise my voice. Or can we have a civil conversation?
I can't hear you.
Right, thank you very much. Right, so if you interrupt, I'll just raise my voice. It's called a phonetic fallacy. It's called a false friend, and only ignorant people make this argument. If you say that because 2 words sound the same, that therefore it means the same, that is called the phonetic fallacy. As a bilinguist, I know that to be true, because there are false friends in Spanish and English, and I know both languages. Now, the reality is, you can badger me all you want to, but I will badger you now, and you'll complain when I do, so just note that down, right? Muhammadin does not mean Muhammad. It's not a noun, it's an adjective. It means something that's treasured or prized or beautiful. That's what it means. It's used in other parts of the Old Testament, and Muslims like you do not use the term Muhammadim to refer to Muhammad in those other passages.
With all due respect, I don't use it. Jewish scholar.
So the Jewish scholar was wrong. He was wrong. He was wrong. He was wrong. And there are other Jews that disagree with him, and he was wrong. He was wrong. He was so what? There is a Muslim scholar. There is a Muslim scholar, your Muslim scholar, a Salafi Muslim scholar that is telling you on record that you are wrong.
We're not wrong. I mean,
You are wrong.
we believe in Muhammad.
You are
We
wrong.
believe in
And
Muhammad.
your own Muslim scholars say so.
We believe in the Quran.
I'm gonna let me find it for you. Let me find it for you.
The word Mahmadim comes from the Hebrew root kamed. It means to desire, to take delight in, or to find pleasure in. The noun form, Mahmad, refers to something precious, something deeply loved and cherished. The suffix im makes it plural, not to indicate number, but to express intensity and poetic emphasis. So in this context, Mahmadim means utterly delightful or altogether lovely. It is not a name. It is not a person. It's an adjective, a poetic description of beauty and longing. Some Muslim apologists argue that this word somehow refers to Muhammad simply because it sounds similar. But this is a forced connection, a phonetic illusion. The name Muhammad is Arabic, while Mahmadim is Hebrew. They may share a similar Semitic root, but the structure, grammar, and meaning are entirely different. In Hebrew, Mahmadim is a common noun in plural form, not a proper name, and certainly not a singular masculine name like Muhammad. If the Bible intended to mention Muhammad, it would have used a proper noun in the singular form, and it would have done so clearly as it does with names like Moses, David, or Cyrus. The context also matters. Song of Songs is not a book of prophecy. It is a romantic poem, a celebration of love between a man and a woman. In Jewish tradition, it is often seen as an allegory for God's love for Israel. In Christian theology, it is understood as a metaphor for Christ's love for the church, but in either case, it is not a book predicting the arrival of a future prophet, especially not one from another religion. And there's more. The word Mahmad appears in several other places throughout the Hebrew Bible. In Lamentations 1:10, for example, it describes the treasures of Jerusalem that have been taken away, translated as all her pleasant things. In Ezekiel 24:16, God says to the prophet, "I'm about to take away from you the delight of your eyes," a reference to his beloved wife. In both this passage and the one in Lamentations, the word Mahmad doesn't point to a person named Muhammad. It simply means something cherished, something desirable. It's never used as a name, and never as a prophetic title. Theologically, there is no space to insert Muhammad into this passage. The New Testament shows us who truly fulfills the longing and beauty described in Scripture. In Luke 4:18, Jesus reads from Isaiah 61, a powerful parallel to Isaiah 42, and boldly proclaims, "Today, this Scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." Then, in Matthew 12:18-21, the words of Isaiah 42 are applied directly to him, leaving no doubt about who the servant truly is. He alone is the servant of the Lord, the light to the nations, the covenant for the people. No other prophet is said to fulfill that role. So let's make it clear. Mahmadim does not mean Muhammad. Song of Songs 5:16 is not a prophecy. It's a love poem. It speaks of deep intimacy, not Islamic end times. It celebrates beauty, not religious ideology. And the one it ultimately points to, fully and without question, is Christ.
What? Peace be with you, bro. No, I'm all right, thank you.
But for you to deny Muhammad...
I deny Muhammad is a prophet.
You deny?
Yes.
And there's,
yes, I deny Muhammad was a
more than 1
prophet.
billion people that
So
accept it.
what?
And you
There are
only
2
want
billion
2 billion
Christians.
to 1. What's the difference?
No, it's 2 billion
what?
Christians.
There's so many Christians entering Islam.
So truth
Big
is a
scholars,
democracy now.
big scholars.
So truth is a democracy, and there are no scholars in the Christian world.
That
Oh,
are
really?
entering Islam.
These are low
Let me
IQ
tell you one
arguments,
thing,
my
let me
friend.
tell you one thing.
These are low
Oxford-
IQ arguments.
Oxford doctor, like he's
So
a
what?
philosophy, he's
So
a
what?
prophet, he's a prophet.
There,
You got
so
Oxford
what?
people
There are
Oxford.
Oxford
So you're not in
scholars.
that position.
There are Princeton scholars that tell you that there are errors in your Quran. There are scholars from Oxford that tell you that there are errors in your Quran. You're making low IQ arguments, my friend. Low IQ arguments. Right, listen, this is what he says. Listen. We also referred to some experts in the Hebrew language who confirmed the soundness of these translations and confirmed the word Muhammadin is not a proper noun or a name. Rather, it signifies beauty and desire. It is mentioned in many places in the Old Testament with such meanings. Furthermore, the context here rules out any interpretation of the word as referring to Muhammad. In other words, your own scholar is telling you you're talking BS, bullshit, when you say that this passage is talking about Muhammad and he went to Muslims who knew Hebrew and they confirmed it. So my point to you is, why have your da'i lied to you? Why have Muslim da'i in this park filled your head with rubbish that your own scholars are saying is bullshit and a lie? Why are your da'i lying to you? Why are your da'i lying to you?
Muslims often claim that Muhammad is mentioned in the Song of Songs, especially in chapter 5, verse 16. To support this, they frequently cite hadiths that describe Muhammad's physical appearance. These descriptions are then placed side by side with the poetic language of the Song of Songs, as if to suggest that the Bible secretly prophesied the coming of their prophet. One of the most commonly quoted hadiths is found in Sahih Bukhari 3283 and Muslim 4330, where Anas bin Malik describes the prophet's body as neither too tall nor too short, and his skin as neither very white nor very dark. In other words, a medium brown complexion. This, they argue, matches the imagery in the Song of Songs. But that entire comparison falls apart the moment we read Song of Songs 5:10. My beloved is white and ruddy, the chiefest among 10,000. Hebrew uses the word sak for something bright and gleaming, pure and glowing white, and Adam for a warm reddish hue, alive with color and strength. Together they express a vibrant and living beauty, not merely a skin tone, but a poetic celebration of charm, attraction, and life. That's a far cry from a neutral brown complexion. Muslims also point to another hadith, Bukhari 639 and Muslim 636, where Muhammad's face is described as white like paper, but this occurs when he is gravely ill, near death. That moment of paleness is then used to justify the phrase white and ruddy. But again, the context is completely different. The Song of Songs speaks of romantic love and vibrant beauty, not death and decay. This isn't just a weak comparison, it's a theologically flawed one. The Song of Songs doesn't describe someone who is dying. It's a passionate love poem, filled with longing, desire, and poetic beauty. Its metaphors are intimate, emotional, and expressive, not prophetic.